So here we are once again on the Get Foxy show, this time with my colleague and friend, Darrell Stern. Darrell, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. I sure appreciate it.
I'm ready to get Foxy. I've been waiting and waiting. There's just hasn't been enough Foxy around. And you said, come on the podcast. It's time to get Foxy. And I said, heck yeah, let's do it.
Well, you, my friend, are a very unique individual in that you went from showbiz and acting to what I would call an entrepreneurial influencer.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen?
Well, okay. So interestingly enough, and this is a topic maybe we can get into more depth, with your audience and all that, is that I was doing theater all through my childhood. I had an agent in New York City. So after grade school, my dad would rush me into New York City and circle the block while I would go upstairs and audition for the different, shows and all that. So in about 1983, I landed the part of Scooter Computer on this 4-part series on Schoolhouse Rock. If you're Gen X or above Gen X, I'm born 1971, you might remember Schoolhouse Rock. So they did 4 cartoons. It wasn't very long lived, but it was called Scooter Computer and Mr. Chips. And it was teaching kids what a computer was, that you could have a computer in your home. And literally the first episode is about computer basic, like the basic programming language and the logic of what a computer does. The funny thing is that everything that's talked about in that little cartoon is still true today about the basics of what the heck a computer really is. It's just now able to do all those things a heck of a lot faster, with a heck of a lot more memory and all those kind of things. So I got into playwriting after that and dramatic writing. After college, I really didn't, get any of my plays produced. So my mom yelled down the basement. I was living in the basement. They moved me down the basement and she goes, "You're going to go to graduate school and get a master's degree in communications and go into television." So I said, "Okay, Mom." So I went to Montclair State and I was studying TV broadcasting, and they actually had one of the oldest the big television broadcast decks, with the big, huge cameras and all that kind of stuff there, from something that was called Dumont, which was one of the first television channels or broadcasters way back in the 40s and 50s. So when I got out of there, it was 97. They said, "Okay, you can go be a page, at NBC and work your way up the ladder." I inherited my father's impatience. And I was like, "I have a master's degree now. What are you talking about?" So it was about then that there were these floppy disks at the computer store that said HTML. And I took a look at that and said, "Wow, this is amazing. This is the next big, amazing thing." So we were all homeschooled, taught ourselves all of that, worked in the corporate world. And then it wasn't until about 5-6 years ago that I realized, as I was working with people, as now we have social media and YouTube and all this kind of, media marketing, that marketing truly is theater. It is the art of starting meaningful conversations, and it has to be dramatic. It needs to pull people in. It needs to be like putting on a show. I think, all of this is show business to me. So that's when I came up with my methodology, which is you are a gift to the world. And the world needs your gifts, what you can teach, what you know, and what you can demonstrate that you kind of take for granted. Other people say, "Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that." So using that methodology, and then also pulling from yourself this joy of knowing I have these gifts, I need to use them somehow. And then throwing in a little bit of acting, a little bit of theater training, a little bit of script writing, right? A little bit of training in how to make it a little bit heightened, a little bit dramatic, so we can break through the fourth wall. And that's how I, created the world that I'm in now, which is doing dramatically engaging, media marketing. So the point of the story, and we'll go back through it in different elements of it, Terry, is finally you realize what you've always been doing, what you did when you were young is still what you're doing now. It may have a different form, it may have a different shape to it, but still don't ever throw away those things that you grew up doing, because they are the things that are who you really are and what you were meant to be doing.
So how do you kind of pull this out of the people that you work with? How do you help them figure out what their message is and then spread that message.
Sure. So a Sternstorming session begins where I ask you, and I'll ask you, Terry, between the age 0 and age 10, what were the events that happened? It could have been when you were playing with your brother or sister, or was something that happened with your parents or your first kindergarten teacher or whatever. What were the events where you learned your first lesson that you carry with you today? So I'll give you an example from my own life. In the 80s and on Shaggy Doo, or what is it called? Scooby Doo, Shaggy would say, like, and then we had the Valley Girls that would go, like, like it's, and my dad would slam his hand down on the table when we started talking like that and said, it's not like, it is. It either is or it isn't something. And then when we would say, he would say, I don't know. So I would say that has carried its way through into what I teach now, which is articulation and condensing language and cutting away all that extra verbiage. Today, Terry, the magic word now is basically. I don't know where this came from, but this coming week, talk to people, get them on the phone, talk to your patients, ask them how they're doing, and they're going to tell you, well, basically, I don't feel well this week or da da da. Just it's the new it's a new Valley Girl thing. It's that new extra hiccup word. So I would ask you, Terry, as you were growing up, age 0 to age 10, what event, what lesson did you learn that still is imprinted in you that you use today, that it's part of your ethics and philosophy?
Oh my goodness. Well, when I was that age, I grew up on a cattle ranch in Wyoming. And so I learned a lot about cowboy culture and kind of the code of the West. And so, honoring your word and doing an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, those kinds of ideas really stick with me in the work that I do now.
Right. So what I would do if we were to go into the full blown, 4 hour Sternstorming is when I get to the point where we're writing your inbound marketing, your landing page videos, your new funnels and all that kind of stuff. I would put in there, somehow weave in there, I grew up on a ranch. I grew up as a cowboy. I know the code and the ethics of the West, which is, right, to be a gentleman, to get the job done and to do that. And I would pull that into there. And obviously, you've kept the Wild West circa 1880 mustache, which is so part of your persona and the character that you're playing. You understand that I would pull that in somehow, the verbiage, the culture, the ethics, right, of the Old West into the way that you're bringing people into marketing. And I'm sure you're doing that anyhow, naturally, because I always say you are your brand. What made you is how you are. But when we really focus in on that and realize that and consciously notice that, we can bring it out even more and separate ourselves out from the pack of other people who are technically doing the same thing that we do.
So in a way, Darrell, you're kind of an alchemist. You're able to kind of determine what's inside of a person and pull that out. So how do you kind of go through that and transform their state of, I guess, mediocrity into something that would improve their business and their personal life?
Well, okay, so I don't think that anybody is basic or mediocre. Perhaps that's how they look at it, and perhaps they are saying and talking to themselves in a way that is making them feel limited. And you know about limiting beliefs, I'm sure.
Oh
The
yeah.
big, yeah, the big key word in that is they. Well, they won't like me if I'm not thinner, or they won't like me or they won't pay for this at $200, or they won't like my podcast, whatever. Um, my response to that is, I'm sorry, but you don't have ESP. I don't see the crystal ball and the thing. I know you didn't graduate wizard school. I know it. I was there. You didn't pass. You failed. So sorry, but you don't know what they are doing at all. Does that make any sense? So when we pay careful attention to the language that we're using when we talk about ourselves, and we start to realize that we can change that language And in changing that language, we're going to change our philosophy a bit. Then that turns around. So going back to what you're talking about, as I go through your life, and then we look at what are the features of this business that you want to create now, which we want to make sure also that it's a business, right? Like, for instance, this podcast, the movie theater makes money at the concession stand, not the movie ticket, right? So this podcast is the movie ticket, right? It brings people in and it keeps them going, and it brings them into the theater. And then in this, you have your extra things that you post, and you put in the descriptions of your YouTube and on the podcast and all that. That goes, oh, by the way, if you like a session with Terry, if you like to continue the conversation, right, you use that as a way to bring people in. So I totally forget the question, but there you are.
Well, the question was, how do you pull someone from what I said was their state of mediocrity, but maybe more of a
So
state of self.
sure. Sure. So in terms of Sternstorming, we go then from age 10 to age 15, age 15 to 20, age 20 to 30. I've worked with people that are all the way up into their mid 60s. So we go through their entire life bit by bit, and then look at all these incidents and all these stories that come out of that. And then we start to write down what are the topics in these stories that would make great media for marketing. A lot of people don't maybe realize is that the thing that you put aside, that thing that you say, oh, I would never talk about that on camera, is really the thing that's going to bring more people in than ever before, because they're going to identify with you. They're going to identify with your story and pull those things in. So out of that session, we can come up with as many as 100 to 150 of these stories. And then combining that with, okay, what is the business service here that you're providing? What is the actual benefit of it in the aftermath of having worked with you? The combination of those things makes something very powerful. So to make a concise answer to the question, how do I pull them from mediocrity to this, is they come out of it with a list of 100 different videos and stories that all they have to do is go, well, what do I do next? Create the media, like tell the next story, tell the next story, tell the next story. And then I teach the methodology of how to get these out on all these different platforms. So what it also does is it makes you understand the breadth and the scope of organic, let's call it influence building marketing. There's a lot of people out there with the trickery magic trick of click funnels and an ad, Facebook advertising, which is amazing. And I honor the people that do that. I say that's advertising, that's not marketing, which is a separate whole, type of vernacular and a separate philosophy, which is constantly staying visible to your audience, continuing to expand your network, and continuing to be transparent and opening up more and more and more, so that those people that truly identify with you and that you can give hope to, because you are the answer, you are the solution, will come to you.
What I'm hearing from you is that positive self-talk
Yes.
and actual, vulnerability, which leads to authenticity, makes you
Mm-hmm.
more relatable to your audience. Am I hearing that correctly?
Very correct. Yes, most definitely. And then of course it's also with the what we would call the call to action, but also there's a deeper, simpler level to that. And there's two parts of that. One is I'm going to start marketing is the art of starting meaningful conversations. So, Terry, how long have you been doing this podcast?
Oh, geez, 3 years.
And what was one of your favorite episodes ever where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting and so amazing?
Joanna Shakti in her discussion of masculine and feminine energies and how they interplay.
Awesome. So I just started a conversation with you. How did I start that conversation?
Just by asking a question about what I like.
Aha. Yes. So instead of just posting, here I am, this is what I do, here I am, this is what I do, right? Look at me, right? Instead of just posting, me, involve your audience in everything that you're doing. Ask them a question. It might be as simple as, what do you feel about this? What kind does this exercise, does this feel more masculine or feminine to you and your energy, right? You can tie it in, right, like along with the types of things that you talk about in the theme of your work and all that kind of stuff. So um so start a conversation by asking questions. Ask your audience questions, and you'll get so much more engagement, which is the social media business term, but I call it conversations. You'll get more meaningful conversations going with your audience.
And that's big stuff right there, Darrell. That's huge.
Thank you.
I think we get so caught up in kind of making everything about ourselves. And what I'm hearing you say is, well, no, you need to take the spotlight off of you and
Mhm.
put that more on your audience, and then that creates more engagement.
It's never about you, it's always about them. It's about who do you serve and how can you serve and how can you give them something from your knowledge that will help them along the way. With the caveat too, and this is something that now has gone too far to an extreme of, well, you're not giving away the whole farm. Like when you were back at the ranch, right, working on the cattle and wherever you were working on, right, the person didn't come over and you just said, hey, I have 3 extra cows, I'm the most generous man in town. Like, you didn't give it away, right? So there's a borderline between serving and giving, and being articulate and knowledgeable and demonstrating what we know how to do, and not, you know what I'm saying, giving away the farm. In other words, have a borderline. So the idea of marketing to me is getting people excited enough that they want more. Now, George Lucas, sitting in the Millennium Falcon today in my Zoom call with my virtual background, right? George Lucas loved to watch the serial radio plays and shows like the old Flash Gordon and all of that during the 30s and 40s and all of those types of things, where it would say, will Flash Gordon make it off the cliff? Will we survive this? Is the doomsday counter going down? And oh my gosh, find out in the next episode. And what did that do? That made everyone go, I can't, tell me more. When's the next episode? Right? So there's this part in the marketing and the drama of this that makes people go, wait, I want to hear the rest of the story. Hold on. You didn't give me the whole solution. How really does it work? And that's when you close the sale. That's when you bring them into your group program. Or whatever it is, or you make the appointment for their therapy session or their massage session or their haircut or their coaching session or whatever, into that next, level and all that.
Speaking of big questions,
Yes.
I'm going to ask you the question I ask all my guests, and that
Okay.
is, what is your definition of Foxy? What does Foxy and being Foxy mean to Darrell Stern?
Okay. So, Foxy to me is someone who is intelligent, someone who has a real go-getter kind of attitude, somebody who is very independent minded. And I'll throw in this one. I love a girl in glasses. I don't know why. Like, I love a brainiac, I'll tell you a little bit about my background, my story. I always was on Broadway or close to it. I was a scooter computer and I was all this. All I wanted growing up was a girlfriend. This was my obsession. Like, I don't understand why I can't have, a girlfriend. So, and I asked out every girl at the senior prom. They all said no, all this kind of stuff. What I realized after my divorce and moving to Denver and realizing, oh my gosh, I'm tying my own shoes now. I'm paying the rent all by myself. No one is helping me. And I really focused on Darrell, talking to myself. I've got to do this. I've got to do this on my own. There's no one here is going to help me with anything. Then all of a sudden, I realized how to tap into myself, tap into my own energy, start to build my own business, start to learn, how to be independent, financially independent, but then also really got to my core of my ethics and my philosophy. And then I think it was all of a sudden, I was 44 years old. We were in one of these round table with the old Experienced Pros group. You remember them, downstairs in my old office. And this lady across the, and I had my three-piece suit on and all this stuff. And I had also lost a lot of weight in the past 10 years. And she was married lady, but she looked across the way at me and she said, Darrell, you're looking sharp. And I turned to my friend Adam and I said, wow, 43 years of dull, all of a sudden I just sharpened up. Why? Because the core of my confidence level in who I am, what I do, who I serve, really then made me Foxy. Now, what I'm getting at is I hear a lot and I see a lot about, well, my appearance, or I've got to put on makeup, or I've got to do this, or I've got to do that, and I've got to make myself look a certain way, or, they won't like me if I don't do this right. And I go, look, if you're confident in yourself, if you know who you are, who you serve, you're blasting through your career, maybe you're an entrepreneur like we are, Terry, that is more Foxy to me, your own independence. Because to me, if two people are going to meet and have a relationship, a Foxy relationship, right? They're meeting as equals. They're meeting as two independent people that complement each other, but at the same time don't need each other. Any relationship that's based on need, either I need her for something or she needs me for something, you tell me. I mean, it doesn't work and it doesn't last. So to me, Foxy is someone who has really delved deep into their selves and understands themselves a lot. I believe, and I have learned, that this life that we're living is a journey of us as conscious sentient beings to understand our own makeup. And once we figure that out, we can then go on and be Foxy.
Straight up life wisdom from Darrell Stern right there. How can people work with you or find out more information about how to Sternstorm with you, Darrell?
Sure, most definitely. You can go to Sternstorming. That's like brainstorming, only you put in my last name, Stern, like the back of a boat, no relation to Howard. And you fill out the form, you give me your name and your email, and I will literally send you my entire online course in how I made this auto mechanic into an international influencer using YouTube and SEO and all of that. And also teach you some of the philosophy, which is to wake up in the joy of knowing, hey, I'm a gift to the world. I have gifts to tell. I have knowledge and things that other people know that I need to share.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it, ladies. Go visit Sternstorming. Check out Darrell and have him work with you because he will definitely pull the golden nuggets out of you so that you can put those to work for yourself. Darrell, I can't believe it, but our time's up already. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate what you do, my friend, because you are adding more light into this world. So thank you so much.
And Terry, I'm very proud of you and all the things that you're accomplishing too. So continue to serve others. And I hope and wish that more people will be so improved by your work and that you can continue to serve those who really need your gifts.
Fantastic.